Lesson 5, page 37. There are some pretty important vocab words here at the top, so make sure you notice and check those out. Budget, income, expenses, surplus, deficit. Check those out. I know that they're pretty common, but things that we kind of overlook sometimes come back and bite us, so check them out. This is kind of where we're going to start getting into Excel a little bit, and this first page here on page 37 is think about how to read it. So if you have experience, this will be pretty easy. If you don't, it might be kind of new. So just going through, this is a mini piece of a spreadsheet. And so we'll just answer the questions together. What are the values in column B? So column B is here. And if you'll notice, column B is the estimated monthly income. So column B would be estimated. Column C, here's column C, and that would be the actual. Right, so you can use spreadsheets to kind of compare what you expect to come in and what actually does come in. It kind of makes a difference. So columns go this way. In number 4, rows. So rows are horizontal. So in row 3 is here. So that's the income from your job. All right, and then last but not least, cell. Each one of these boxes is called a cell. So C6, so we go to column C, row 6, and this is the cell, and that answer would be 150. So you have $150 actually came in from other income 1. So you're definitely going to want to be able to reference a spreadsheet and tell what each piece means. Now on page 38, I didn't copy the entire thing, but they talk about cell G13. So here's G, you can't really see it, and this right here, this blue box is cell G13. And what does that mean? Using the term either surplus or deficit. Well, when you are in, and it's not in color, so that doesn't really help, but when you're in Excel, if you have a deficit, it will show up in parentheses usually, and usually it will show up red. So since that is in parentheses, we know that we have a deficit of $260. So what we spent, right, we spent more than what we brought in, which generally is not good for a budget. So you're going to want to make sure that you're taking in more than you're spending, and if you keep track of your budget like this, you will notice that you do have a deficit. On page 39, I'm not going to go through all 5 questions. I really only like 1, 2, and 3. So on page 39, I want you to stop, hit pause, look at questions 1, 2, and 3, see what you can do, and then come back because I think it's kind of interesting. So they give us at the top, they tell us the receipts are 2.45 trillion and the expenses are 3.54. First thing to notice, receipts is another word for income, right? You received it. It came in. So we took we had an income of 2.45 trillion, but we expended or we spent 3.54 trillion. You can already see this is not going to go well. So number 1, surplus or deficit. Well, you already know that you spent more than you had. So we know right off the bat that we have a deficit. And how much? Well, we spent 3.54 trillion. We only took in 2.54, and the difference is 1.09. So we have a deficit of $1.09 trillion. So that's super, super huge. In number 2, average citizen has a per capita income of $42,693 if they operated like the federal government. So we're going to do income to expenses. That's the thought process. The U.S. government brings in 2.55 trillion and spends 3.54 trillion. Well, if the average U.S. citizen brings in 42,693, based like they are at the U.S., how much would they be expected to spend? Right? So we're using this concept, cross multiply, solve our proportion. You can expect to spend $61,687, and again, we're talking money, so we round to the nearest penny. And 3 cents. Now, I don't know about you, but thinking about $19,000, spending $19,000 more than what I take in every year makes me kind of want to throw up. That is not really a good business of any type. So we're going to kind of want to stay away from that. Right? If you don't have a budget, you really should have one, and I'll help you make one because I think it's fun. Let's look at number 3. Assuming the U.S. population was 314 million, calculate the per capita deficit. So we know the deficit for 2012 was 1.09 trillion. And we know that trillion means 12. So 1.09 times 10 to the 12th. Now, per capita means per person. I've got 314 million. Million means 6. So I know that's not scientific notation. Don't hate me. So when I go ahead and do this, I'm going to divide 1.09 divided by 314, and I get 0.0034713, I believe, if I can read my handwriting. 12 minus 6, so I get times 10 to the 6th. Now, that doesn't look like anything I can deal with, so I know this is a positive 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So for just 2012, $3,471.30 is a per capita deficit. So if every person in the U.S. in 2012 would have given the government an extra $3,471.30, we could have broke even for that year. Now that's everybody. That's you, that's me, that's your 3-year-old kid, that's the homeless kid on the street, that's the 90-year-old guy in the nursing home, that's everybody. So you can see how big of a problem this whole debt thing can be. All right, I don't like 4 and 5, so we're not going to talk about them, but we are going to move on to page number 40. 1 and 2, if you don't know the opposites of those, I'd like you to look them up, because I think that it is important to know the opposite of deficit and the opposite of debt, but I'm not going to tell you. So number 3, we're dealing with number 3 here in the math. Calculate the U.S. federal debt per capita using a population of 314 million. Well, if you look at the top, the entire federal debt, so we're not talking per year, we're talking overall. At the end of 2012, you get this at the top of page 40, the federal debt totaled $16.1 trillion. Okay, so once again, trillion means 12. So I'm going to go ahead, I know it's not scientific notation, stop hating on me. And the population is 314 million. So times 10 to the 6th. Again, I'm going to divide 0.051273885 times 10 to the 6th. If I move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places, I'm going to round to the nearest dollar just to be tricky, and we end up with a federal debt per capita of $51,274. This is a federal debt per capita. So if everybody in the entire U.S. right now would give the government $51,274, our debt would be wiped clean. I don't know about you, but I don't have $51,274 to give to the government. Part 4 kind of builds on that. They say compare. So the debt that each person has, if we talk about federal debt per capita, is $51,274, but the estimated yearly income is $42,693. So notice, in a year, we don't even take in what our federal debt per capita would be. Isn't that kind of crazy? Like, we are in some serious doo-doo here up in here. It's just kind of crazy. So that's kind of dealing with federal debt per capita. Let's look at page number 41. Okay, so on page 41, you see this graph, right? We have the deficit and surplus over time on the left and the debt accumulation over time. So let's go through the questions. Number 1, according to the chart on the left, so we're dealing with this one here. Around what year was there a surplus? Well, 0 here is the breaking even, so surplus is right here. Go down. It's approximately 1998. Okay, so that leads us to number 2. Let's look at how does that affect the accumulated deficit or debt chart on the right. So 1998 is approximately right here, so let's go up. What happened right there? Well, if you notice, it's about the only time that it stabilized. Right? Let me erase my circle so you can kind of see, but look at that. It just, every place else, it goes up, goes up, goes up, but right around 98, we just kind of have a little spot where it just stays still. So when we have a surplus, right, and it makes sense. If there's a year where we have a surplus, that means we are not accumulating more debt. we don't have any more debt, right? Every other year we definitely accumulate more debt. So in number 3, what has been happening in recent years according to the chart on the left? So these would be the recent years. Notice how much bigger that is. So we definitely have been accumulating way more debt recently. And estimate the accumulated debt of 2009, so that goes over here, 2009, go over, we're getting really close to 14,000 billion. If you look at the wordage at the top, it says values are in billions. So we are definitely having some debt issues up in here. So there's federal debt, lesson number 5.